Good morning. My name is Kaya Sabu, and I'm going to talk about video games and addiction in adolescence. So looking on the stimulus, it talked a lot about education, implementing video games into education, and it talked about how influential video games have been in society. So I started thinking, there has to be some negative effect to video games being in society. So this led me to the question of, to what extent are video games addictive in adolescence? And socially, it seems to cut off, not completely, but for the most part, it cuts off any social interaction. In a study done by Antonis Ruggi, who has a PhD in clinical and health psychology, 10% of World of Warcraft players spend 63 hours a week playing. That's 36% of the week. And then another study done by Brian Ng, who has a PhD in computer science, says that heavier hardcore gamers, as they call them, are less likely to put themselves in social situations. They're more likely to be reserved and not go out to parties or interact in school with other peers. Scientifically, a psychological addiction is different from a physical addiction, where you don't have withdrawals like you would if you were addicted to a drug, but you're still addicted to it. You still, in a sense, get high from the addiction because it's an escape for you. You just rely on this addiction to get away from emotional or feelings or anything. And that's what happens with addiction in adolescence when it comes to video games. And according to S.M. Grusser, who did a study, he has a PhD in medical psychology, 12% of adolescents scored a 12 in all three areas of the criteria that you would meet to be considered having an addiction to video games. And then going back to Ruggi, he says, looking into it, many of the adolescents he studied, they have negative feelings towards themselves, or they have issues going on, like some of them have family problems, or some of them are being bullied and struggle in school. If we look economically on how it affects adolescents, according to Kurt Squire, who has a PhD in industrial technology, in 2001, the newest PlayStation hit a net worth of $150 million, and then according to Microsoft, which is a company that produces consoles and video games, over 84 million Xbox 360s sold, and over 50% of that was going towards adolescents to use. And looking at that, you can see that a lot of adolescents use their money or their parents' money to support their gaming and what they want to play and their addiction. And to conclude, what we can do, video games aren't a bad thing, but in abundance, they're not good either. So what we can do is limit how often adolescents are using video games and give them the resources to talk about what's going on with them, so that way they don't turn to video games as their outlet.